Hey friends, it's Rana, and today it is that time of the year again for the Asian Readathon. If you don't know, the Asian Readathon is a month-long reading challenge created and hosted by Cindy from With Cindy, and the main purpose of it to make people or encourage people to read more diversely by reading books by Asian authors or featuring Asian characters. I believe this is my third time participating in the Asian Readathon, and I love it. I only participate in two readathons, the Asian Readathon and the non-fiction readathon, and I love both of them. This time I didn't anticipate, or I didn't calculate it right, because when Cindy posted her announcement video for the Asian Readathon of 2024, I was surprised because I forgot when it is held, what month it is held, and it is May. So I'm here last minute doing my TBR for the Asian Readathon. Each year, Cindy picks a theme for the readathon, and this time she picked the movie Past Lives, and the readathon is loosely based on the theme of the movie Past Lives. I didn't watch this movie, but I'm very interested in it, so I'm gonna watch it during May, during the Asian Readathon. Now for the challenges, we have 5 challenges each year. You can follow them, you can pick one book for each challenge, you can do whatever you want as long as you are having fun and reading books by Asian authors/characters. As for me, I always like to go all in for this, and I pick different book for different challenge, and each book is by an author of different ethnicity. It just makes everything more fun for me. The first challenge, and the most important challenge that we have every year, is to read a book by an Asian author. For this challenge, the ethnicity of the author is Russian, and the book is a Russian classic. It is Notes from Underground by Fyodor Dostoevsky. As always, I know very little to nothing about the books I pick, so I'm gonna read you the synopsis of each one of these books. The unnamed narrator of the novel, a former government official, has decided to retire from the world and lead a life of inactivity and contemplation. His fiercely bitter, cynical, and witty monologue ranges from general observations and philosophical musings to memorable scenes from his own life, including his obsessive plans to exact revenge on an officer who has shown him disrespect and a dramatic encounter with a prostitute. I heard many things about this book. Many love this book, but always say that they hate the main character. And we are gonna see why when I read this book this month. I previously read by Fyodor Dostoevsky Crime and Punishment, and it is one of my favorite classics ever. It was actually my first Russian classic, and this is my second. I really loved Crime and Punishment, and I'm hoping that I'm gonna enjoy this one too. And this one is much shorter, so I believe it's gonna be a faster read for me. As for the second challenge, is to read a book that feels timeless. And for this one, I interpreted as a book that, as Cindy said, we can interpret it many different ways, but I interpreted as a book that I read it once and I want to read it again, and it is 1,000 Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini. This book is by an Afghani author, and the characters are all Afghani and set in Afghanistan. This book, I already read it before many years ago, and it is one of my favorite books of all time. I adore this book. I read it like 7 years ago, and it is the first book that ever made me cry this fast. I believe I was shocked and cried from like the first chapter or something like that. And not cry, but I got all teary-eyed because of this book numerous times. And it is still fresh in my mind, even though I read it so long ago. But I really want to read it again to cement it as one of my favorite books of all time, if not my favorite historical fiction ever. This edition doesn't have a synopsis at the back, but the book is about the story of 2 Afghani women in Afghanistan, like in the 80s and the 70s, and how their life intertwine and they change each other's lives. It is very sad, and let me read you what USA Today had to say about this book. Hosseini's writing makes our hearts ache, our stomachs clench, and our emotions reel. He tells the saddest of stories in achingly beautiful prose through stunningly heroic characters whose spirits somehow grasp the dimmest trace of hope. This actually applies to all of Husseini's books. He is a brilliant, brilliant author, and I don't know why he hadn't written anything in the past few years, but I'm gonna dive back to his word with this book. Now for the third challenge, to read an underrated book. I picked all of my Asian books I have on my TBR. I picked the one with the least amount of ratings and the one with the lowest average rating, and it is The Girl from Aleppo by Nujeen Mustafa. It is a non-fiction book / memoir by Nujeen, and she is Syrian, so the ethnicity of the author is Syrian. And the synopsis says, born with cerebral palsy, 16-year-old Nujeen Mustafa had barely ever left her family apartment in Aleppo when she was forced to flee her home, escaping the bombing raids of a regime determined to quash a revolution, turning her ancient city to rubble in the process. She gives the inside story of what it's really like to be a child refugee, from the help of kind strangers to dealing with smugglers and the governments that don't want you to cross their borders. She describes what it feels like to end up thousands of miles from home and her parents. I never heard of Nujeen's story before I bought this book, and I'm a little bit hesitant to read the book because it is not written by her or her family. It is also written by a foreigner called Christina Lamb. I don't know if she will have any influence on the book from her side, but we will see about that. As for the fourth challenge, we have to read a debut book. I picked a book that is the author's debut, and it is Almond by Won Pyong-sun. It is a Korean book, and I squeezed it in this challenge because I really want to read this book. So no better time than now. I also have another candidate for this challenge, and it is As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow by Zulfa Qatu, and this book is also the author's debut book. However, I am more in the mood to read this one. This is by a Syrian author, this is by a Korean author. I'm now more in the mood and more excited to read this one, but I will eventually get to this one. If I finished all of the books I have on my TBR for Asian Readathon, I will pick this too. What is Almond about? Yoon-jae was born with a brain condition called alexithymia that makes it hard for him to feel emotions like fear or anger. He does not have friends, but his devoted mother and grandmother provide him with a safe and contented life. But everything changes when a shocking act of random violence shatters his world, leaving him alone on his own. Struggling to cope with his loss, Yoon-jae retreats into silent isolation until troubled teenager Gun arrives at school. The two form a surprising bond, and when Gun suddenly finds his life at risk, Yoon-jae will have to step outside of every comfort zone he has created to perhaps become the hero of his own story. I have a very strong feeling that this will become a favorite book of mine. I don't know why, but the synopsis, the length, the cover, everything tells me that it has the vibe, the potential to be a 5-star read for me. Now for the fifth and last and most fun challenge is to read a book with a character, a story, or a word that represent what you want in your next life. Now, I don't believe in reincarnation, but if I did, I would love to be a cat in my next life. Not any cat, no. I want to be a spoiled home cat. I don't know if the cat in this book is a spoiled home cat, but I want to be a cat in my next life if I had a next life. The ethnicity of the author is Japanese, and it is a Japanese translated book. It is one of the most or the best-selling books in Japan, and it is about Nana is on a road trip, but he is not sure where to. All that matters is that he can sit beside his beloved Satoru in the front of his silver van. Satoru is keen to visit the 3 old friends from his youth, though Nana doesn't know why and Satoru won't say. Set against the backdrop of Japan's changing seasons and narrated with a rare gentleness and striking humor, Nana's story explores the wonder and thrill of life's unexpected detours. It is about friendship, solitude, and knowing when to give and when to take. Above all, it shows how acts of love, both great and small, can transform our lives. Every single person I heard talk about this book said that they sobbed their eyes out reading it, and I can't wait to see why. I'm always curious why people cry over books. What in books make them cry? Because I rarely do reading books, and it is interesting to see what makes people cry. So this is my TBR for the Asian Readathon. I just noticed that I have a theme with it. It is about emotional, devastating books. So yeah, it looks like that's what I'm in the mood for. I picked all the books to be on the shorter side because I am not really in the mood to read these days. So I picked the most interesting books on my TBR and kinda on the shorter side. Again, let's see what ethnicities we picked. We have Russian, Afghani, Syrian, Korean, and Japanese. I'm quite happy with my picks, and I believe I'm gonna find some new favorite books among them. So that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you are participating in the Asian Readathon, please tell me your TBR list because I love to discover new books by Asian authors. That's all for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Bye!